This is the fourth day and the time is 1:59. So initially today I promised myself to start the reading at exactly 2. This time around I'm giving myself 2. So still have to get done with like our 7 days, our 3 extra days with Be Careful What You Wish For by Jeffrey Archer. So it was crazy on the previous stream because I did the 34 minutes. The video shows me 34 minutes in my profile side on YouTube, but these guys when they played they told me they'd be seeing 10 minutes, so I don't know what's up, but I guess I have to figure out this whole streaming thing. So today we are starting exactly 2 right now, so I'll do 20 to 30. I'll see how far it goes, but yeah. Where had we start? Haaland and Wolf have just been awarded a contract by Barrington Shipping to build a luxury liner called the Buckingham. Now it's you who's well informed, said Carl. Hardly, said the cultured voice. An architect's drawing of the proposed ship was printed on the front page of both our local papers the day after the contract was signed. So Mr. Lonsdorff, tell me something I don't know. Work on the liner begins sometime next month with the delivery date to Barrington's of March 15th, 1962. And what are you hoping we will be able to do? Speed the process up or slow it down? Bring it to a halt. Not an easy task when so many suspicious eyes will always be watching. We would make it worth your while. Why? Said a gruff voice. Let's just say I represent a viral company. Let's just say I represent a rival company who would like to see Barrington Shipping in financial difficulty. And how will we earn our money? Asked the cultured voice. By results. The contract stipulates that the construction of the ship is to be carried out in 8 stages with specific dates attached to each stage. For example, stage 1 has to be signed off by both sides on December the 1st this year at the latest. I propose that we pay you £1,000 every day any stage is delayed. So if it was held up for a year, we would pay you 365,000. Hi Becca. We're reading off Be Careful What You Wish For by David Archer. Today is my 4th day and initially I set up my challenge for 7 days. So, and I'm doing the reading and I was inspired by Kai, and I also be having like problems with my voice articulation, and I don't know, I also want to train up and get reading discipline because it's been a while. So I know how many days there are in a year, Mr. Lansdorff. If we were to agree to your proposition, we would expect a goodwill payment in advance. How much? Demanded Carl, feeling like an echo for the first time. 2 men whispered to each other. I think a down payment of 20,000 would help to convince us that you are serious, said the cultured voice. Give me the details of your bank account and I'll transfer the full amount tomorrow morning. We'll be in touch, said the cultured voice, but not before we've given you proposition for the consideration. But you don't know where I live. 44 Eaton Square, Chelsea, Mr. Lansdorf. It was Carl's turn to fall silent. And should we agree to assist you, Mr. Lansdorf? Be sure you don't make the common mistake of underestimating the Irish, as the English have done for almost 1,000 years. So how did you manage to lose Lansdorf? He got away from Sergeant Roberts in Harrods. I sometimes wish I could do that when I am shopping with my wife, said the cabinet secretary. And what about Luis and Diego Martinez? Did they also get away? No, but they turned out to be nothing more than a couple of smoke screens to keep us occupied while Lansdorf made good his escape. How long was Lansdorf away? 3 days. He was back in Eaton Square by Friday afternoon. He couldn't have traveled too far during that time. If I was a betting man, I doubt I would get very long odds on Belfast, remembering he spent several evenings during the past month drinking Guinness at Ward's Irish House in Piccadilly. And Belfast is where they're building the Buckingham, but I still haven't worked out exactly what Martinez is up to, said Scott Hopkins. Neither have I, but I can tell you that he recently deposited just over £2 million at the St. James branch of the Midland Bank and immediately started buying more Barrington shares. It won't be long before he will be able to place a second director on the board. Perhaps he's planning to take over the company. And for Mrs. Clifton, the idea of Martinez running the family business would be humiliating enough. Take away my good name. But Martinez could lose a fortune if he tried to do that. I doubt it. That man will already have a contingency plan in place. But like you, I'm damned if I can work out what it is. Is there anything we can do? Not a lot, except sit and wait, and hope one of them makes a mistake. The cabinet secretary finished his drink before adding, "It's at times like this I wish I would been born in Russia. By now, I would be head of the KGB. I wouldn't have to waste time playing by the rules." Chapter 10. No one's to blame, said the chairman. Perhaps, but we seem to be lurching from the inexplicable disaster to another. Perhaps we seem to be lurching from one inexplicable disaster to another, said Emma. She began to read aloud from the long list in front of her. A fire in the loading bay that holds up construction for several days. A boiler breaks its straps as it's being unloaded and ends up at the bottom of the harbor. A bout of food poisoning that results in 73 electricians, plumbers, and welders being sent home. A wildcat strike. What's the bottom line, Chairman? Asked Major Fisher. We are falling quite badly behind schedule, replied Bachanan. There is no chance of stage 1 being completed by the end of the year. If things go on like this, we have little hope of keeping to our original timetable. And the financial consequences of failing to make the dates? Inquired the Admiral. Michael Carrick, the company's finance director, checked his figures. So far the overrun is around 312,000 euros. Can we cover the extra expense out of our reserves, or we will have to resort to some short-term borrowing? Asked Dobbs. We have more than enough to cover the initial shortfall in our capital account, said Carrick. but we'll have to do everything in our power to make up for the lost time over the coming months. In our power, Emma wrote on the pad in front of her. Perhaps it might be wise in the circumstances, said the chairman, to postpone any announcement on the proposed launch date, as it's beginning to look as if we'll have to revise our original predictions, both on timing and financial outlay. When you were deputy chairman of PNO, said Knowles, did you ever come across a series of problems like this? Or is it what we are experiencing? Or is what we are experiencing unusual? It's exceptional. It's exceptional. In fact, I've never come across anything like it before, admitted Bachanan. Every build has its setbacks and surprises, but things usually even out in the long run. Does our insurance policy cover any of these problems? We've been able to make a few claims, said Dixon, but insurance companies always impose limits, and in one or two cases, we have already exceeded them. But surely, some of these holdups are the direct responsibility of Harland and Wolff, said Emma. So we can invoke the relevant penalty clauses in the contract. I wish it was that easy, Mrs. Clifton, said the chairman. But Harland and Wolff are contesting almost every one of our claims, arguing that they haven't been directly responsible for any of the holdups. It's been a battlefield for the lawyers, which is costing us even more money. Do you see a pattern emerging, Chairman? I'm not sure. I know what you're suggesting. Do you see a pattern emerging, Chairman? I'm not sure I know what you're suggesting, Admiral. Faulty electrical equipment from a normally reliable company in Liverpool. A boiler ending up in the harbor that was being unloaded from a Glaswegian coaster. Our gang gets food poisoning, but it doesn't spread to any other part of the yard, although the food was supplied by the same Belfast caterer. What are you implying, Admiral? There are too many coincidences for my liking, which just happen to all be taking place at the same time as the IRA are beginning to flex their muscles. That's one hell of a leap you're making, suggested Knowles. I may well be reading too much into it, admitted the Admiral, but then I was born in County Mayo to a Protestant father and Roman Catholic mother, so perhaps it goes with the territory. Emma glanced across the table to see Fisher furiously scribbling notes, but he put his pen down the moment he noticed her taking an interest. She knew that Fisher wasn't a Catholic, and for that matter, neither was Don Pedro Martinez, whose only creed was self-interest. After all, he had been willing to sell arms to the Germans during the war, so why wouldn't he deal with the IRA if it served his purpose? Let's hope I'll be able to make a more positive report when we meet again next month, said the chairman, not looking altogether convinced. Hello, brother. Hey, okay, miss. How you doing? Greetings from Uganda. After the meeting broke up, Emma was surprised to see Fisher quickly leave the room without speaking to anyone. Another one of the Admiral's coincidences. Can I have a word with you, Emma? Asked Bachanan. I'll be back in a moment, Chairman, said Emma. Emma pushed open the door and ran to her car. When she reached the front gate, she looked left and spotted the major's car in the distance. She was just about to follow him when a lorry passed in front of her. She cursed, turned left, and tucked in behind it. A stream of vehicles coming in the opposite direction made it impossible for her to overtake. She had only gone about half a mile when she spotted Fisher's ear parked in front of the Lord Nelson. As she drew nearer, she saw the major standing in the phone box outside the pub, dialing a number. Just in case you don't know which book I'm reading, I'm doing Be Careful What You Wish For by Jeffrey Archer. To see the major's car parked in its usual place. She took the lift up to the fourth floor and went straight to the dining room. Several of the directors, including Fisher, were standing at a long side table, serving themselves from the buffet. Emma grabbed a plate and joined them before sitting down next to the chairman. You wanted a wine, Rose? Yes, there is something we need to discuss rather urgently. Not now, said Emma, as Fisher took his place opposite her. This had better be important, Kano, because I've just come out of a meeting with the leader of the house. Martinez has a new chauffeur. And, said the cabinet secretary, he used to be Liam Doherty's bagman, the IRA commander in Belfast? No less. What's his name? Said Sir Alan, picking up a pencil. Why? A British soldier went a little too far during interrogation, I'm told. Then you'll be needing another man on your team. I've never had tea in the Palm courtroom before, said Bachanan. My mother-in-law, Maisie Halcombe, used to work at the Royal Hotel, explained Emma. But in those days, she wouldn't let Harry or me on the premises. Most unprofessional, she used to say. I feel tired already. Another woman clearly years ahead of her time, said Ross. And you only know the half of it, said Emma. But I'll save Maisie for another time. First, I must apologize for having been unwilling to talk to you during lunch, or at least not while Fisher could eavesdrop. Surely, you don't suspect him of having anything to do with our present problems? Not directly. In fact, I was even beginning to think he might have turned over a new leaf until this morning. But he couldn't be more supportive at board meetings. I agree. It wasn't until this morning that I found out where his true loyalties lie. Oh, sorry. I'm lost, said Ross. Do you remember at the end of the meeting, you asked to speak to me, but I had to slip away? Yes, well, but what's that got to do with Fisher? I followed him and discovered he had left to make a phone call. As no doubt, did one or two of the other directors? No doubt, but they will have made their calls on the premises. Fisher left the building, drove off in the direction of the docks, and made his call from the telephone box outside a pub called the Lord Nelson. Can't say I know it. That's probably why he chose it. The call took less than a couple of minutes, and he was back to Barrington's in time for lunch, before anyone would have noticed his absence. I wonder why he felt it necessary to be so secretive about who he was calling. Because of something the Admiral said, which meant Fisher had to report to his backer immediately and couldn't risk being overheard. Surely you don't believe Fisher is involved in any way with the IRA? Fisher? No, But Don Pedro Martinez, yes. Don Pedro who? I think the time has come to tell you about the man Major Fisher represents, how my son Sebastian came across him, and the significance of Rodin's statue called the Thinker. Then you will begin to understand we are up against. 3 men boarded the Heysham ferry for Belfast later that evening, carried one kit bag, on one a briefcase, and the other carried nothing. They were not friends or even acquaintances. In fact, it was only their particular skills and beliefs that brought them together. The voyage to Belfast usually took about 8 hours, and during that time, most passengers tried to grab some sleep, but not these 3 men. They made their way to the bar, purchased three pints of Guinness, one of the few things they had in common, and found seats on the top deck. They agreed that the best time to carry out the job would be at around 3 in the morning, when most of the passengers would be asleep, drunk, or too exhausted to give a damn. At the appointed hour, one of them left the group, climbed over the chain with a sign warning, "Crew only," and noiselessly descended to the companionway. And noiselessly descended to the companionway. And noiselessly descended the companionway to the cargo deck. Fuck. He found himself surrounded by large wooden crates, but it wasn't difficult for him to locate the 4 he was looking for. After all, they were clearly stamped Harland and Wolff. With the aid of a claw hammer, he loosened all the nails on the blind side of the 4 crates, 116 of them. 40 minutes later, he rejoined his companions and told them everything was ready. Without another word, his 2 colleagues made their way down to the cargo deck. The larger of the 2 men, who with cauliflower ears and a broken nose looked like a retired The larger of the 2 men, who with cauliflower ears and a broken nose looked like a retired heavyweight boxer, possibly because he was, extracted the nails from the first box, then ripped off its wooden slats to reveal an electrical panel consisting of hundreds of red, green, and